Alabama, 1923. The American South is gripped by terror campaigns designed to keep black people subservient. Thousands of black veterans live in fear, knowing that any attempt to demand equality could end with their bodies swinging from trees. But this is how it has always been in America. White extremists keep black people under control through violence and intimidation. But tonight, something different is happening. Because America isn't ready for what is about to unfold. Because one black educator decided he had had enough. Robert Moton had come to teach those hooded cowards a lesson. And when they arrived at Tuskegee, everything changed. The same group that had terrorized black communities for generations was finally forced to face something they never expected. Thousands of armed black defenders who weren't afraid to fight back. What followed was a confrontation so intense it would shake the very foundation of American medicine and redefine what it meant to have black excellence. But that wasn't the end, because soon this hospital would find itself in the crosshairs of a far more powerful enemy, their own government. Stick around, because today I'm telling the story of how one hospital rewrote the rules of black resistance. 400,000 black soldiers marched home from European battlefields in 1919. They had saved the democracy overseas that had never intended to include them. They had charged through German trenches, saved white lives, and proven their courage under fire. But America had a different welcome waiting. These veterans discovered medical apartheid in its most calculated form. White-only hospitals turned them away entirely. Veterans administration facilities shoved black veterans into basement rooms and storage closets. In Birmingham, black veterans waited 8 hours for treatment that white veterans received immediately. The message was unmistakable. You're worthy of dying for America, but not worthy of being healed by America. Dr. Robert Moton, president of Tuskegee Institute, received hundreds of letters from desperate veterans. One former sergeant from Montgomery captured their collective anguish. Dr. Moton, they treat our wounds, but make us feel ashamed for having them. 300,000 black veterans lived in the segregated South with virtually no access to proper medical care. The government's response revealed their true intentions: build a separate hospital for black veterans, but staff it entirely with white doctors and nurses. Federal officials promised local whites complete control while telling black leaders the facility would serve their community. The deception was deliberate and systematic. Tuskegee Institute had been proving white racial theories wrong since 1881. The campus housed John A. Andrew Memorial Hospital, where Dr. Hallie Tanner Dillon became Alabama's first certified female physician in 1891. When white medical schools claimed black people lacked the intellectual capacity for surgery, Tuskegee's medical staff included physicians who had trained at prestigious institutions and performed complex procedures that challenged these racist assumptions. By 1920, the hospital treated patients annually with success rates that exceeded most white medical facilities in Alabama. Black medical students from across the country came to train under physicians who had graduated from Harvard, Yale, and Johns Hopkins, despite racial barriers. When Booker T. Washington died in 1915, Robert Moton inherited this fortress of black intellectual power. Moton understood that Tuskegee represented living proof that white medical superiority was a myth maintained through exclusion, never merit. The government's hospital proposal presented an unprecedented opportunity: expand black medical sovereignty onto federal property with federal funding. Speaking of black medical excellence that mainstream history tried to hide, if you believe these suppressed stories of black brilliance need to be told, please subscribe to Black Stories Untold and help us expose the truth they've been covering up for decades. Now, back to the video. Federal officials made contradictory promises because they were managing a careful illusion. To Tuskegee's white neighbors, they guaranteed complete white control. To black leaders, they spoke vaguely about serving black veterans while avoiding commitments about professional staffing. Then, They appointed Colonel Robert H. Stanley as director. Stanley arrived with explicit orders to prevent black professionals from holding any positions of authority. His correspondence with the Veterans Bureau, later uncovered through NAACP pressure, revealed the strategy: maintain white oversight to ensure proper medical standards. Stanley wrote to Moton, declaring it utterly impossible for black and white medical staff to work as equals. The Veterans Bureau supported this position, arguing that white supervision was necessary for quality patient care. The real fear became clear in internal government memos. Allowing black medical professionals to demonstrate competence without white oversight would undermine segregation's medical justifications across the entire South. Moton's response was surgical in its precision. His letter to President Warren Harding cut straight to Republican political reality. If Negro physicians and nurses are debarred from service in the hospital without at least being given a chance to qualify under civil service rules, it will bring justifiable criticism upon your administration. The alliance Moton forged with the NAACP and National Medical Association created unprecedented pressure. Dr. John Kenney of the National Medical Association documented numerous qualified black physicians and nurses ready to serve at Tuskegee. Black newspapers across the country launched coordinated editorial campaigns. The Chicago Defender ran headlines reading, "Federal Jim Crow Hospital Insults Black Veterans." The Pittsburgh Courier published detailed exposés of white medical incompetence in existing VA facilities. When Harding ordered the Veterans Bureau to halt hiring until qualified black candidates could compete fairly, he unknowingly agreed to let black medical expertise compete directly against white mediocrity, protected by racial privilege. The response from white communities revealed how threatened they felt by this prospect. Death threats flooded Moton's office daily because local whites understood what was at stake. If black doctors could successfully run a federal medical facility, what other claims of white superiority would crumble? Local Klan chapters held emergency meetings throughout Alabama. Government officials documented their growing concern about black medical authority, threatening the established racial hierarchy in the South. Throughout spring and summer 1923, black communities rallied behind Tuskegee with unprecedented coordination. The NAACP organized protests in cities across the nation. Black medical associations sent telegrams to every Republican congressman. Black newspapers across the country launched coordinated editorial campaigns demanding equal treatment for black medical professionals. After 6 months of sustained pressure, the impossible happened. The federal government agreed that black medical professionals would be hired at Tuskegee Veterans Hospital, starting with administrative positions. Local white extremists weren't finished. They were planning something that would either destroy Tuskegee or expose their own weakness. July 3, 1923. John Calhoun stepped off the train in Tuskegee as the hospital's new bookkeeper. This Hampton University graduate represented the moment white gatekeeping cracked open. Stanley handed Calhoun an unmarked envelope containing Klan threats, as if intimidation could restore the racial hierarchy that federal policy had just shattered. But Calhoun's appointment triggered something Stanley hadn't anticipated. Word spread through white extremist networks across Alabama. 700 Klan members from multiple counties prepared for what they saw as their final opportunity. They expected to find isolated, frightened black people they could terrorize into submission. Instead, they discovered something that shattered every assumption about black capabilities. The 70-car caravan that rolled into Tuskegee carried more than hooded terrorists. These were businessmen, politicians, and professionals who understood that black medical independence threatened their entire social order. Thousands of armed defenders had been preparing for months. Tuskegee students, trained in military tactics through campus ROTC programs, reportedly armed themselves with precision that demonstrated tactical intelligence white extremists claimed black people couldn't possess. Local residents, faculty members, white allies, and Jewish supporters formed protective perimeters around the campus. For the first time in Klan history, the terrorists found themselves surrounded, outgunned, and completely outmaneuvered. The hooded cowards quietly shuffled through town and retreated. No burning, no violence, just the humiliation of 700 armed terrorists being defeated by superior black organization. This victory triggered changes that would reshape American medicine. Stanley's transfer followed immediately after the Klan's public humiliation. The Veterans Bureau quietly began hiring qualified black professionals throughout 1924. July 1924, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Henry Ward made history as the first black American to direct the Veterans Administration Hospital. Ward, who had served in the Army Medical Corps during World War I and risen to lieutenant colonel, brought unquestionable credentials that white officials couldn't dismiss. Under Ward's leadership, Tuskegee Veterans Hospital opened with 600 beds and became the only federally funded medical facility run entirely by black professionals. Dr. Toussaint Tilden, a Harvard Medical School graduate and psychiatrist, joined as one of the first 6 black physicians recruited. By 1930, half of all black veterans receiving hospital care were treated at Tuskegee. More significantly, all black doctors employed by the Veterans Bureau worked there, creating an unprecedented concentration of black medical expertise. Tuskegee Veterans Hospital specialized in treating tuberculosis and combat-related mental illness, the 2 conditions most commonly affecting black veterans. Black physicians developed innovative treatment protocols that white medical establishments initially dismissed, but later quietly adopted. Dr. Tilden established accredited residency programs that trained black specialists in psychiatry, surgery, and internal medicine. Over the following decades, Tuskegee-trained doctors served in hospitals across the nation, carrying with them the confidence and competence that comes from being allowed to excel without racial limitations. When World War II began, Tuskegee Veterans Hospital became the medical backbone for the most famous black military unit in American history, the Tuskegee Airmen, training at nearby Moton Field. These pilots, who would go on to compile an unmatched combat record in Europe, received their medical care from the same institution that had proven black excellence a generation earlier. The symbolism was powerful: black warriors being healed by black doctors on black land. No racial condescension, no medical bias, just excellence caring for excellence. The airmen's legendary success in combat and the hospital's continued medical achievements created a dual proof of black capability that white institutions could no longer deny. Today's healthcare disparities reveal that Moton's war continues. Recent studies prove that black patients receive significantly better care from black doctors, not because of racial preference, but because shared experience eliminates unconscious bias that still infects medical practice. The statistics remain damning. Black doctors comprise only 5.7% of physicians, while representing 14.4% of the population. This isn't coincidence. It's the continuation of the same gatekeeping system that Moton fought in 1923. Research shows that black patients often receive better care from black doctors and report higher satisfaction when treated by black medical professionals. Tuskegee continues operating today as part of Central Alabama Veterans Healthcare System, serving communities in Alabama's Black Belt, where healthcare disparities remain most severe. The white extremists who marched on Tuskegee understood something many people today still miss. That hospital wasn't about integration. It was about black independence, the most terrifying threat to white power. Every surgery performed by black hands stripped away white medical mythology. Every life saved by black knowledge exposed the lie that white people were naturally superior healers. Every administrative decision made by black leadership proved that white oversight had never been necessary. Here's what really terrified them. Tuskegee Veterans Hospital demonstrated that black people didn't need white permission, white approval, or white charity to excel. When Black professionals controlled their own medical environment, they exceeded white standards. That's why 700 armed extremists felt threatened by one bookkeeper. That's why medical segregation required legal enforcement rather than natural superiority. Remember Tuskegee. Remember Robert Moton. Remember that sometimes the greatest victories happen in operating rooms where Black hands heal what white power tried to break. If this story of Black medical excellence moved you, subscribe to Black Stories Untold, because we're exposing more hidden histories of Black brilliance that they tried to bury. The legacy of Tuskegee lives on every time we support Black medical professionals and demand our rightful place in healthcare. Let's make sure Moton's war for Black medical independence wasn't fought in vain.